Game Time Decisions is live right here on SportsGrid. I'm Kevin Walsh with you on the opening day of the Masters 2024. We have a lot to get to. Brady Cannon will be here in 10 minutes. We'll get his thoughts on the opening round at Augusta, which did have a bit of a pushback start time. Not as pushed back as many thought, which is good news, but it does mean there's still a lot of first-round golf to be played, and there still could be some big movers on this leaderboard. But there is no way anybody other than Scottie Scheffler will be favored to win this tournament at the end of the opening round. Currently 6 under and sitting at plus 100 to win the Masters, the best player in the world, and the pre-tournament favorite has looked excellent to start. There is still plenty going on elsewhere tonight on the sports board. The NBA slate, it's a bit light. A lot of teams with just 2 to play, some with 3. We have some games tonight. We have a few tomorrow, and then everyone's off Saturday, and the entire league will be in action Sunday for the regular season finale. Light baseball board with just 2 to go. We will get you the MLB play of the day, and we'll also hit a little bit on the NHL slate tonight, so make sure you are with us throughout tonight's evening as we are with you on SportsGrid. Let's pull this open here and take a look at some of the key items on this Thursday night. As I said, though, nothing bigger than the Masters. That is the top story right now. Here are some notable scores. Again, we obviously wanted to try and let some people get into the clubhouse, so it's not all of the biggest names, but a few key ones. Firstly, though, we'll bring our radio audience into the fold. Sirius XM, channel 159. Kevin Walsh with you here across the SportsGrid network. It's Game Time Decisions. Bryson DeChambeau looking to pay out round 1 leader bets. At last look, better than minus 500. Scottie is giving him a run. At least the dead heat rules will see people split that payout. Bryson a little bit better than 30 to 1, I believe, to win this tournament before it got underway, sitting 7 under. Neiman pulled it back here. He had a few double bogeys, but he's now settled in 2 under. A lot of people excited what he would bring to the table as probably the most in-form golfer on LIV entering this tournament. Phil Mickelson won over. Tony Finau sitting right now 1 under. We'll talk Rory, Rahm, and Scottie, the big guns, in just a few moments here. I am on the Masters outright board. I sent this out very late night to people, but it's when I decided to get my work done. Xander Schauffele, Hideki Matsuyama, and Cam Young. Schauffele's battling back. At last look, he was even. It'll give him a very much so outside chance. Hideki 4 over. That's done. And then we'll put eyes on Cam Young in a bit. Have some top 20 and top 40 for tomorrow's action. We'll find some round scores, some matchup bets after the dust settles in the opening round. This is where I'm looking. I'll say this. When you take a look at Scottie Scheffler and Jon Rahm, who are 2 of the 3 favorites, and you, of course, take a look at Rory McIlroy as the middleman between those guys. A lot of interesting stories around all of those guys. Rahm trying to go back-to-back. Last person to go back-to-back, Tiger Woods. Tough thing to do. If you look, this tournament has not been won by the pre-tournament favorite in 18 consecutive. If I'm not mistaken, the last person to do that, Tiger. So basically, if Rahm or Scottie are going to cross the finish line, they have to be Tiger-esque. Rory in the middle, we know he's great, but can he close the door? And that is the main conversation. Nobody really trusting Rory to do that. People will bet their high-level finishing positions, top 10s, even top 5s, but can Rory actually cross that finish line? The thing is, early, it's Scottie Scheffler who looks still Tiger-esque. His price, the shortest since Tiger Woods back in 2013, I believe it was, when Adam Scott won the Masters. So a really interesting tournament. And again, we'll talk more in about 5 minutes with Brady Cannon around that. Let's shoot this forward here. We're going to put some eyes on your NBA and NHL key matchups. We are also approaching that NFL draft. We'll get there in a moment. Chicago and Detroit. Sacramento will host the Pels on a very tight number. Golden State and the Lakers are deadlocked into the play-in. There is room for more in terms of getting out of the 9-10 game. They're going to need to put results up on the board. Golden State, a decent-sized favorite in their matchup with Portland. And then a really interesting one, a battle for positioning in the East. The Celtics, of course, are secure. So a lot of people were looking to back the Knicks in this spot. The Celtics, though, still going to play some of their key guys. And we'll talk about this game, but there could be some value on the board with Boston as a light home favorite here against the Knicks. NHL-wise, again, it's a packed slate. We'll talk to Joe Madden in about 50 minutes here on Game Time Decisions, get some of her thoughts on this NHL board. A lot of the big games are starting at 7 o'clock, so keep tabs on the ice tonight. And again, we'll talk to Joe Madden then. If we could shoot it over to the NFL draft, though, which again, we are approaching just 2 weeks away from the NFL draft. Jaden Daniels right now is the favorite to go second. Why do we start here? Because Caleb Williams going to the Chicago Bears is a foregone conclusion. The odds suggest as much. I do not think you are going to see any surprising winding movement on Caleb at 1. So now it's what will the Commanders do at 2? It doesn't look like they're going to trade out. And if they're not trading out, it means they are taking quarterback. There are some people who are deadlocked that this team will draft Drake May, who is plus 135. The more interesting thing to me is, does this decision impact the New England Patriots? Because, again, the Commanders are well aware they're not going to have Caleb on the board, and they're really deciding between these two guys. I don't think J.J. McCarthy's hype is enough to get him up to the 2. If Drake May is off the board, would the Patriots then decide to trade out? Are they happy with Jaden Daniels? Could they take Marvin Harrison Jr.? And vice versa. Is this team saying we only want Jaden Daniels, and if not, we're trading out, or we're going to potentially entertain Marvin Harrison Jr.? There's a lot more questions around the New England Patriots, it appears. Still certainly the odds expecting they will draft quarterback at 3, but more uncertainty if Marvin Harrison is surprisingly taken inside the top 3. What do the Cardinals do at 4, who are minus 200 right now, really to select Marvin Harrison Jr.? And then if there are other trade-outs that get entertained, what does that mean for the Chargers and Giants, who some people believe could be trading out of that spot? A lot of intrigue around that draft right now. Plenty of markets available, not just picks 1 through 10, but we have draft position over-unders on guys like Brian Thomas Jr. and Joe Alt, as well as Bo Nix. Where will Penix be drafted? These are all things that we will be covering here on our biggest draft special yet, live from our New Jersey studio, so make sure you're tuned in for that. We'll quickly put a quick pick on the board. I am going to back the Boston Celtics on their money line at minus 122. Boston off of a loss, smashed, quite frankly, by the Milwaukee Bucks. At home, at this price, it's an automatic bet. Enough of their key guys are playing. Give me the Celtics. We'll get some more NBA on the board in a bit, but Brady Cannon and the golf are next.
Victor Hovland right now can probably hit it right where he's looking on the range. But the problem is when you get out to a golf course, especially like Augusta National, it's a big, big picture. You can see every shot in the world, but the targets are really, really small.
I feel like whoever we pick is going to win. Like, I feel like we have the power to choose the winner of this tournament.
I know. I'm surprised more guys haven't reached out.
And they might, and they probably will.
Only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Jason Tatum has games where he has stinkers. He shoots a 4 for 16. Jaylen Brown in the playoffs gets exposed because he can't go left. Porzingis gets old. Sometimes Jrue Holiday's not consistent. Al Horford father time to catch up. That being said, I still think they're going to the NBA Finals and winning it. And I'm a Knicks fan. I hate the Celtics with all of my might.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Memphis owns it. They beat them 5 straight times. And Memphis is awful. So what does that say about the Bucks? They're the most overrated team in the NBA, hands down.
Michigan and Boston College, there's going to be goals scored in this game. But, with that being stated, the total's up to 7.5 right now. I got to go under 7.5 here, Scott.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game Time Decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
this
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live on SportsGrid, Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh with you. Checking in with Brady Cannon. We're going to talk to Brady here, and then we'll run it back in about a half hour. There's a lot still happening at the Masters. Though, Brady, maybe not. Maybe it's over. Look, this is what happens when a pre-tournament favorite looks this good this early. Scottie Scheffler is down to plus 115, I'm seeing right now, to win the Masters. Let's start with this. Your takeaway from what Scottie is doing with his first round almost over.
Well, I tell you, it's an amazing price here at the conclusion or near the conclusion of the first round, certainly for him. You've got a lot of other players with at least half the holes left to play. Because of the weather delay this morning, there are going to be guys that do not finish today. They'll go back out early in the morning. But what he has shown us so far through, on the 18th hole now, looking at another birdie possibly to tie DeChambeau for the first round lead. What he has shown us so far is what we have seen, really for a long time out of Scottie Scheffler. He just never seems to have too much of an errant shot. He did have one errant shot early on the front nine today. He was able to make up for that and escape with a par. And then he had the really big break at 13. It looked like he put his approach shot into that green, the par 5, into Rays Creek. They fast forward, a couple shots later, and they come back to the 13th hole, and they find that it skipped like across to the other side of the creek, and there's his ball on the side of the hill. He chips it up and taps in for birdie. Just an incredible turn of events there. You figure that is at least a 2-shot swing and maybe a 3-shot swing. I mean, he could be coming into this. Let's say he makes birdie on 18. He could be finishing day one at -4 or -5 rather than -7. So that was a huge swing there on 13. On 15, he has an eagle try, just an incredible iron shot in there. Then he comes back on 16 and stuffs it to about 3 feet. his iron play is just so incredible. And even off the tee, I mean, on 17, Rory's driving it past Scotty, but Scotty always seems to be in the right position and never missing a fairway, it seems, especially on the back nine. The guy's ball striking is just unbelievable. And, his price was not only Tiger-esque this week, but the way he has played today looks Tiger-esque. And like you said, this could already be over. I mean, if he's going to continue to play like this, no one is going to catch him.
So tell me, Brady, what you've made of the conditions at Augusta, because the weather was a concern. It ended up not being as bad, I think, as some people were anticipating. It didn't push things back as far as people were wondering. What do you expect a winning score to potentially look like here at Augusta? You always mention, and not that this is the case because Bryson's right there next to Scotty and a few other guys, but if someone has a big lead, if the conditions are easy enough, it gets really hard to catch them. What do you make of how Augusta's playing right now?
Tomorrow is going to be really key. The winds are blowing in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 miles an hour right now. And Scotty Scheffler is probably pretty lucky to be at the end of his round. A lot of guys still have some holes to play. A couple hours of daylight left there in the Augusta, Georgia area. Tiger's still on the course. DJ, Spieth, Lowry, a lot of contenders still out on this course. But I think Friday is going to be the determining factor. When we get to Saturday and Sunday, the conditions are going to be gorgeous and very benign as far as the wind. The wind is going to, or is supposed to anyway, dip under 10 miles per hour. You're looking at temperatures in the low 80s. Scoring conditions ought to be excellent. Now, at the same time, the golf course is probably going to be firmer and faster. It probably did get a little bit softer overnight with some of the moisture that was experienced overnight Wednesday into Thursday morning, but they have the sub-air systems there, not only in the greens, but in the fairways, so they're able to suck out that moisture pretty easily. I do believe the golf course will play tougher tomorrow, though, because these winds are going to make these greens more crispy. They're going to dry them out some. And then you also have this basically the same wind pattern on Friday, anywhere from 15 to 25 miles an hour. So, Scotty is going to be teeing off probably midday or so. All the tee times, of course, were shoved up about 2.5 hours this morning. So the guys that teed off late, they're probably going to have these guys go off at like 6 a.m., maybe 6:30 in the morning. Wow. And they're going to catch about a 2 to 2.5 hour break of very light winds. And then about 9 or 10 a.m., we're back up into 15, 18, and pretty soon 20 plus miles an hour on Friday. The good news, Kevin, about the way this weather cooperated is I don't think there's an uneven bias in the draw. I think everybody's getting pretty much the same conditions, and nobody is at a decided disadvantage or advantage because of when they're teeing off and how these winds are going. For the first 2 days, everybody is pretty much dealing with this 20-mile-an-hour wind stuff.
So I want to ask you then about the guy that is at the moment the round one leader. We'll talk again a little bit here. We're going to talk to Coach James Young next, hit the NBA, and then Brady's going to join us again at 6:40 about Bryson DeChambeau. It was not that long ago that I think Bryson said he was kind of going to tear up Augusta with the way he played, and it didn't go well, and it turned a lot of people on Bryson. But I'll tell you, the opening round was about as good as possible. Just one birdie, 7 under for Bryson DeChambeau. And if Scotty Scheffler wasn't such a heavy pre-tournament favorite, Bryson would be, if not for Scotty Scheffler existing, Bryson would be a clear favorite right now. What do you make of Bryson?
Well, I believe it was either last year or the year before that he was the first round leader as well. And then he went on to miss the cut. So, that is very possible. This guy has struggled around Augusta. He's missed the cut the last 2 years in a row. He's never had great success here. Like you say, when he called this out and said it's really a par 68, it seems the Masters gods have not forgiven him for saying that many years ago. He was a little bit more humble in Butler's cabin today, talking with Scott Van Pelt, saying, Scott asked him, does it really take a long time to figure this golf course out? And he said, absolutely, it's ongoing. And like I say, he was more humble in that answer than he was years ago when he said he could tear this place apart. And he has on a couple of occasions for the first round, like he did today. I'm seeing it at plus 550 right now to win the golf tournament. I'm not going to bet on him. I'd rather bet on Scotty Scheffler at plus 115 or plus 120 is what I'm seeing, because we know how powerful Scotty is. You know, we saw what he did today. We saw what he's been doing as of late. But just based on DeChambeau's history at this golf course, I didn't want to get involved with him pre-tournament, despite being in very good form coming in. He's had a number of very good finishes on the LIV Tour. But he is typically not a great Masters player. And this is the second time he's going to be one of, if not the sole first-round leader. But that hasn't meant much in the past. So, no, Bryson is still not a play for me at this point.
Quickly, Brady, before we let you go, I want to ask you about Rahm. A mini collapse for him to close out his round with two straight bogeys on 17 and 18. Rahm now goes all the way back to 55-1 here on the outright market.
Yeah, I tell you, you know, I saw a little bit out of Jon Rahm that we haven't seen in a little while, and that was him getting fiery and frustrated. You know, he was that way early in his career, and everybody said, oh, he's a hothead, and he's got to calm down, and he's got to get rid of that before he can succeed. And I don't know if that's the reason he succeeded, but it certainly helped. And we saw him, you know, be much more calm, cool, and collected, I think, in the last couple of seasons. But today, I saw him get frustrated and get flustered and kind of get out of that zone that we saw him have last year when he went on to win this thing. So, you know, if that behavior continues, I think that's a red flag. Otherwise, Jon Rahm is still one of the finest players in the world, probably a top 3 player in the world, right there with Rory and Scheffler. So I'm not counting him out just yet. He's got a big round in him for sure. He knows how to play very well in the wind. He's got a lot of experience in this golf course. So if he can kind of regain that focus, I expect him to bounce back and be there. I don't know if he'll be in contention if Scotty continues to go the way he's going, but I think Rahm will be in the conversation over the weekend.
Going to need Rahm to get at least up to that top 20. We'll talk more about that and everything else we're seeing at Augusta with Brady in 20 minutes. Don't go anywhere. We're going to talk to Coach James Young next, though, about the NBA slate right here on Game Time Decisions.
Victor Hovland right now can probably hit it right where he's looking on the range. But the problem is when you get out to a golf course, especially like Augusta National, it's a big, big picture. You can see every shot in the world, but the targets are really, really small.
I feel like whoever we pick is going to win. Like, I feel like we have the power to choose the winner of this tournament.
I know. I'm surprised more guys haven't reached out.
And they might, and they probably will.
Only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Jason Tatum has games where he has stinkers. He shoots a 4 for 16. Jaylen Brown in the playoffs gets exposed because he can't go left. Porzingis gets old. Sometimes Drew Holiday's not consistent. Al Horford father time to catch up. That being said, I still think they're going to the NBA Finals and winning it. And I'm a Knicks fan. I hate the Celtics with all of my might.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Memphis owns it. They beat them 5 straight times. And Memphis is awful. So what does that say about the Bucks? They're the most overrated team in the NBA, hands down.
Michigan and Boston College, there's going to be goals scored in this game. But, with that being stated, the total's up to 7.5 right now. I got to go under 7.5 here, Scott.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back with you right here on SportsGrid. I'm Kevin Walsh. I'm joined by Coach James Young. JY, we've got an NBA board to go through for the people. How are you tonight?
I mean, Kato, I just started during the break. You're looking sharp with that hair slicked back. Hey, hit my man an ISO, looking like a young Pat Riley with glasses. I see you, bro. I see it.
Listen, someone's got to do it. Why not me? JY, we'll go through the NBA board, and then we'll make some big picture news happen. But before we do that, since you and I have last talked, we have seen the pullout of Scott Drew, the Baylor head coach from the Kentucky job, and Dan Hurley, the UConn head coach from the Kentucky job. And I promise this is not me thinking, oh, it's going to be Billy Donovan. I need to turn this into a positive. I've thought more and more on this Billy Donovan thing because he is now the favorite to become the new Kentucky head coach, and you've long said you've thought Billy Donovan made sense. I told you I'm worried about someone being 10 years removed from college. What I've then realized, Coach, is the best possible place you could be to come back into the new landscape of college basketball is the NBA. He's dealing with free agency and guys that are, I don't want to say prioritizing, I think that's unfair, but certainly factoring in the financial aspect in a way that was not going on in college. So the more I've thought about it, Billy Donovan shows up and someone at Kentucky is trying to talk contract. He's like, yeah, I was talking to DeMar the other day. No problem. Yeah, okay, I was talking to Vucevic just last week. And, of course, Billy Donovan's ability to sell the level of talent he's coached in the NBA, I think it's forgotten to people. This is someone that coached Kevin Durant in Oklahoma City, coached Russell Westbrook, of course, with the Thunder. So I got to tell you, JY, the more I've thought on it, I've actually become a bit sold that Billy Donovan, because we still think he's a good coach, I actually do, the way the landscape has changed, it might work in his favor.
No, it will, and I think it's what's really important, folks, is, and Kevin made it known, he walks into Kentucky and he's got street cred up the wazoo. Won in the SEC, won national championships, been to an NBA Finals, coached some of the greatest players of this generation who these kids identify with, right? He got Durant and Westbrook and Harden as young ascending players, right? He's had DeRozan. He's had, Levine. He's had Vucevic. You can even talk about the popularity of Lonzo Ball. He has had big-time players. It makes sense. Now, what's going to make more sense is he's going to have a really good staff behind him. He needs a killer on the recruiting front. And he needs a staff that's going to back him up because they need to do the legwork. I was thinking about this. One of the best assistant coaches in the nation, if I'm Billy Donovan, I call Brandon Knight of Rutgers and say, blank check. What you want? You want $1 million? You don't want $1 million? Because if a guy like Brandon Knight can get those two kids, Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, to go to Rutgers, then you know that guy can recruit. Go get a big-time young recruiting coordinator that can go into the hood or go into the wherever they need to go and get a kid, get an experienced coach. That would work. One name I did hear a little bit that's starting to come out. Mark Pope supposedly is starting to emerge.
Yeah.
BYU, remember, folks, where do you go to college? Kentucky, part of the 96 national championship team. Someone that's been loved in that community and has done a great job at BYU. He doesn't sell the sizzle, right, like Billy Donovan, but he's a Kentucky guy. So that's why that one makes a little bit of sense, too.
Yeah, I feel like that is, with respect to Pope, the backup plan.
Yeah.
To Billy Donovan. Because, again, the reporting from people close to this program have been very clear. Scott Drew, Dan Hurley, Billy Donovan. Not necessarily in that order. I will say, Hurley waited a very long time to officially say no. And at some point, they're going to come out that he got even more money out of UConn. I am absolutely sure of it. All right, JY, let's look at tonight's board. We've got the Knicks and the Celtics. Fascinating game here because Boston doesn't need it. The thing is, Boston hasn't needed a game all season long, basically. I played their money line at minus 122. The numbers moved a little bit here. What do you see with this game tonight?
I'm a Knicks fan. I'm nervous. Brown's available, right? They got a bunch of Tatum's available. I'm nervous. Here's what I would say to you folks. Watch the minutes early in the game. If you see Boston play their starters a bunch of minutes in the first half, maybe jump on the Knicks in the second half. Because at some point, Joe Mazzulla is not going to play these guys 40 minutes. He'll probably play them about 25, 28 minutes. Watch it. Probably about mid-third quarter when they check out, they probably don't check back in, maybe jump in on the Knicks. But here's the thing, I was thinking about this, K-Dub, and I know Tibbs is competitive. If you are the Knicks and you think Indiana is going to be 6, right? And you look at Indiana's schedule down the pipe, Cleveland, Atlanta. Do you really want to go for 2 and possibly pay either Philadelphia or Miami? Or are you better off being the 3 with the 6?
Yeah.
Something to think about.
It's such a tricky thing, JY. It really, really is. I think the fascinating thing, and I'm going to talk Milwaukee a little bit on my own, JY, here tonight, because I want to get people your picks. I don't want us, just because I know how you and I are, and we'll go down through the full Bucks rabbit hole. They're now 17-1 to win the title. It's basically took the Giannis injury to put a price next to the Bucks where people would go, okay, maybe, because of how little people want to back Milwaukee. To your point, though, if the Bucks are so vulnerable, they get upset in round 1, the Knicks will have home court in round 2 anyway over the Heat or the Sixers if they were to eliminate them. It's a really interesting point. It's just the tough thing is how quickly the Knicks could fall back to the 4 or the 5. Yep. How log-jammed we are in the Eastern Conference. One of the teams, JY, that's going to be in the playoffs, but we know it's going to be in the play-in, are the Chicago Bulls. Tonight they're in Detroit against the Pistons. What do you like?
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Bulls minus the points here. I know it's a large number, but listen, folks, they have something to play for in Chicago, even though they're locked into the playing game. What is it? It's home court. Right now, they have 2 games in the loss column, so I think, if I'm not mistaken, they need to win 1 more game to clinch it. I think they get it done tonight. If you're a team like, Detroit, like, are you really going for it? 13 wins? Better off you lose 1 more. What's a guarantee? Best chances of getting the number 1 pick. Although people think it's the worst draft in the history of the NBA, it's still a number 1 pick. To me, I'm going to take the Chicago Bulls minus a point. If you're nervous about taking it, the full amount of the game, slice it in half, take it in the first half to jump out early.
JY, probably the best game on the board tonight is Kings-Pelicans. The loser of this game is on 9-10 watch. I think that's the reality of it here. And one of them's going to lose it, but maybe there's a prop angle you prefer in Kings-Pels?
Yeah, when you look at the Kings-Pels game tonight, I'm going to go with my guy, Trey Murphy III, over 15.5 points. Last game, I think he got up to 30. This is a guy that can score and score it like crazy. He's gone over 4 of his last 5 games versus Sacramento. Not a strong defensive team. You're looking at being guarded by someone like Harrison Barnes or someone like Keegan Murray. So I think he gets loose. Give me Trey Murphy III over 15.5 points. I think he gets loose tonight.
Trey Murphy is one of these just perfect modern NBA players, but just such an oddly constructed, not odd, the Pels are just one of the most fascinating teams. At some point, whenever their offseason is, JY and I will discuss that. Unless they're champs, in which case it'd be like, oh, things are great. JY, I guess there's only so many of these you can still play. Look at the smile. Look at the smile. You gotta be kidding me. Denominating. Go ahead, JY. Flex that muscle. Go ahead.
Denominating.
Unreal.
Over 11
Unreal.
I'm back. Denominating.
This
over
guy's crazy.
He's got over his last 5 games. You want more, folks? 6 out of 8. You want more, folks? 11 out of 15. Denominating. And watch him get 5 rebounds tonight. Him and Brook Lopez, they killed me all year. But I got a feeling tonight, K-Dub. He ain't sleeping on that air mattress anymore. He's got a regular king-size bed, a Posturepedic, whatever they call it, a Sealy's, whatever they do, those things. He ready to roll. Denominating tonight.
Denominating. JY, the only thing from your card we didn't get to yet, perhaps intentional. Hate to see it. I love the Jazz tonight, catching the 11. You're all about the Rockets. What's going on here?
Oh, I'm all about the Rockets. Listen, no one's fading more than Utah. And I really think, Kevin, I think getting to 500 is going to mean a lot for this young team, sitting at 39-40. So I think they're going for it. And Utah they're just playing out the string. And if you start looking at all the guys from Utah that are out, Clarkson, Collins, Dunn, Kessler, Marketing, Sexton, then you start looking at Houston. All right, Sengun's out. That's the only real guy that's really of substance. So I'm going to take the Rockets minus the points, and then I'm going to jump on Cam Whitmore. 12.5 points plus assists. Now, the points are already at 12.5, so if he gives you assists, it's free. This is the kick and score, going over 4 of his last 6 games.
All right, so Whitmore, I'm good with that. I like the Jazz tonight, JY. Appreciate it as always. By the way, WNBA draft coverage, the people want it. Coach and I will make that happen for you. JY, we'll talk over the weekend. Appreciate it. Brady Cannon back in the saddle next.
Victor Hovland right now can probably hit it right where he's looking on the range. But the problem is when you get out to a golf course, especially like Augusta National, it's a big picture. You can see every shot in the world, but the targets are really, really small.
I feel like whoever we pick is going to win. I feel like we have the power to choose the winner of this tournament.
I know. I'm surprised more guys haven't reached out.
And they might, and they probably will.
Only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Jason Tatum has games where he has stinkers. He shoots a 4 for 16. Jaylen Brown in the playoffs gets exposed because he can't go left. Porzingis gets old. Sometimes Jrue Holiday's not consistent. Al Horford father time to catch up. That being said, I still think they're going to the NBA Finals and winning it. And I'm a Knicks fan. I hate the Celtics with all of my might.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Memphis owns it. They beat them 5 straight times. And Memphis is awful. So what does that say about the Bucks? They're the most overrated team in the NBA, hands down.
Michigan and Boston College, there's going to be goals scored in this game. But, with that being stated, the total's up to 7.5 right now. I got to go under 7.5 here, Scott.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. your 24/7 sports wagering network. The Early Line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on Sports Grid.
Back with you right here. It's Game Time Decisions on a Thursday night, joined once again by Brady Cannon. Brady, we hit some of the top items. Of course, Scotty Scheffler shortening his price from about plus 400 to now seeing plus 130 at the settle point here. He is one shot back of the round one leader currently, Bryson DeChambeau. There are still a few other golfers on the course. I kind of want to start here just open-ended to you. What is something that's caught your attention as we've starting our coverage at Augusta?
Well, I think Scotty's ability to play in this wind was really amazing. And, Bryson was one of the first guys on the course, and I think he got out there a little bit prior to when the real teeth of the wind showed up. He certainly had to deal with it on his back nine, no less. But I think he got out to a great start. I think he birdied maybe it was the first three holes or three out of the first four or so. He was to 3 under par pretty quickly and then was able to birdie a couple of par fives. So just a nice clean round for Bryson DeChambeau, but I think he did benefit from going out a little earlier. But Scheffler, the way that he was able to play, no mistakes on the card. I don't think he made a single bogey today with that wind. That's really impressive. You go down the leaderboard here, Nikolai Højgaard doing especially well. He's through 12 holes at 4 under par. He played very well. I was on him at Torrey Pines for the Farmers Insurance Open, and I thought I was going to go to a playoff there with Pavone, and Pavone ends up winning that. But Højgaard, the fact that he played well at Torrey Pines, that's another course that has some similarities to Augusta National. That tells me that he can go really well here. He's a big hitter, has had tremendous success in the past year on the DP World Tour. Tyrrell Hatton is a guy that has never played well at Augusta before, and he's off to a great start, 3 under par through 10 holes. Max Homa is another guy that's never had success at Augusta before, that's off to a great start, 3 under par through 8 holes. So, I think what stands out to me the most is Scheffler. You kind of always get some surprises the first day at any major championship. Homa, Højgaard, Hatton, those are a little bit of a surprise. Danny Willett out of nowhere with a 4 under par. But I think Scheffler's ability to not have a single bogey on the card in that wind that kicked up in the afternoon is very impressive.
Now, I want to ask you about two names, and that's Ludwig Aberg and Wyndham Clark. Whenever we get to the Masters, because it's the most covered tournament, you hear a lot more about trends. And one of the very simple ones is not since 1979 has a debutante won the Masters, which for some people will automatically remove Wyndham Clark and Ludwig Aberg from their cards. But Wyndham Clark is someone, if you look at his price pre-tournament, it doesn't match up with where he is in the world golf rankings. Now, he got off to a nice start, 3 under. He's struggling quite a bit here, though, on the back half of Augusta right now, shooting it, I think, 3 over, actually, right now, with still one more hole to play. Aberg is off to a decent start and actually has the 4th shortest odds in the live outright market. I'm curious for you, knowing that trend of no one in a very long time being able to win this in their first try, what you thought of both Clark and Aberg entering the Masters.
I wasn't really surprised by Clark's start when he got out to 3 under par. Now he's back to even, as you mentioned. But I had a feeling it would catch up to him, and it has. I didn't realize it would start, on the back 9 today. And the wind, again, the wind makes this very, very difficult, more difficult than it already is. But I thought it would probably catch up to him in round 2. I thought if he's going to finish, 3 or 4 or 2 under par today and kind of go, wow, I had never been here before, but it's not so bad. I thought that might come back to bite him on day 2, but it looks like it's happened sooner than that. I think he's still going to be okay. He's too good of a player to not get around here, and do well. I don't think he's going to fall apart. If he finishes even par for today, that's a pretty good start for your first time ever at Augusta National. And I think that will be the mindset for him rather than what I was talking about previously. Had he shot 3 or 4 under, he goes, this ain't so bad. And that's when you get a little ahead of yourself and maybe a little overconfident. And that's when trouble's looking down your door there. But the fact that if he's able to kind of hang on here and finish with even par today, then I think the mindset becomes, okay, I get it. This is nothing to be messed with. And maybe that adds an extra layer to focus for him. And he, and every round you take at Augusta National, every round you play, you learn more and more. So again, an even par finish for Wyndham Clark after starting out real hot, everything he's been through, a little bit of everything in this round, that's probably a good thing for him at the end of the day.
So let's try and then figure out kind of the jump in point for people, Brady, because look, if someone has a pre-tournament bet on Scottie Scheffler, great. I don't know how many people will be moved to jump in at plus 130 if they weren't already in at plus 400. They maybe will hope he can, just get leapfrogged by a few people here. And again, it's funny. He's not even currently the leader. It's just this is kind of the force that Scottie Scheffler is at this moment. When you're trying to potentially find live opportunities here, and I know we're talking a lot about the outright board, but we did just get underway with this tournament, is there a range that they need to be in? Is it just a caliber of player? Maybe there's a statistic that you're looking at where somebody's due for some positive regression.
Yeah, you're right. You do want to try and find that positive regression, and the strokes gained statistics are not readily available from Augusta National. They don't necessarily keep that for the general public to view, so that becomes a little bit difficult. But you mentioned Ludwig Åberg. The guy's 1 under par through 7 holes. He's got 3 par 5s left. I think this is a debutant, and Wyndham Clark included, that has a chance to possibly win this event for the first time since 1979. I think he has the ability to get to, a top talent in the world, like a Scottie Scheffler, like a Jon Rahm. He's that good. He's already ranked 9th in the world, and he's only been on tour for less than a year, it seems, if not truly less than a year. He might be a guy that you take a shot with. He's already 1 under par, and he has a lot of golf left to play. He's not even going to finish his round today. He'll start early on Friday, and he will catch a break for a couple of hours, maybe an hour and a half or so, where the winds are pretty light. So the situation looks pretty good for him. Corey Connors is a guy who has had a lot of success here, and I'm seeing him at 66-1. Joaquin Niemann, we talked about him briefly in the other segment that we did earlier. He's basically at the same pre-tournament price where he was, 28-30-1, and shot a nice even or under par round today at 2 under a 70. Will Zalatoris, also very similar to his pre-tournament odds at about 30-1 right now. So I tell you the other thing, it's been historical at Augusta National for the Masters tournament. If you're not in the top 10 after day 1, the odds are really against you. So right now, the top 10 ends at 2 under par, and that's right where Niemann and Connors and Zalatoris all are. So again, looking at in-game pricing, I would probably, just based off of history, I would look at guys that are currently or in the top 10 at the end of the day. We're not going to truly have an end of the day here today because round 1 will finish up tomorrow. So maybe you wait a little bit to make your in-game plays tomorrow. If I was going to make one right now, it might be Åberg, the debutant, who has a lot of golf left to play. Like I said, he has 3 par 5s left to play where he can certainly make birdie there. But, going forward after that, I might wait until that first round truly comes to a close and look at those guys who fall into the top 10 and see if you can find a diamond in the rough there.
Now, tell me, Brady, for you, when you've always told us, right, finishing positions, head-to-head matchups is really what you look for, in these golf tournaments. Do you jump back into these markets heading into a Friday? Because, again, a lot of these will stay up. We'll sometimes get new matchups, even possibly day of matchups, right? The 18-hole match bets versus 72-hole match bets. How else will you be approaching live now live betting the Masters?
I might look into some live outright bets, Kevin, but I probably will not do that until play concludes on Friday after 2 rounds. I don't really like to jump to too many conclusions. And I tell you what, when we get off the air here, I may make a play on Oberg, but typically I wait until we've seen 2 rounds go by and I can kind of get a feel for, 1 round, anything can happen. 2 rounds, you kind of have a feel for what's going on a little bit. And we also have high expectations that the weather's going to be perfect on the weekend. So I think maybe you see how guys have done through a couple of days of wind and see where that leaderboard is set up for the weekend and go from there. As far as head-to-head matchups, unfortunately, single round matchups is not my forte at all. I probably will not play any of those. It's just never been something that I've been very good at. I haven't been able to, have any gut feelings about it or handicap it very well. And I think one of the reasonings there, or at least a rationalization that I've come up with, is it's kind of like betting 1/4 of a football game. I talked about we've only seen 1 round go by so far. A lot of things can happen in 1 round of golf. It's the same with betting head-to-head matchups for just a singular round. It's very much more unpredictable than it is for all 4 rounds, because for all 4 rounds, that handicap that you have on a certain player has that much more time to manifest and develop. Again, I relate it to a football game. Trying to bet the Chiefs versus the Bills and what's going to happen in 1/4 is probably more difficult than figuring out or predicting what might happen over the course of the entire game, where the metrics and the form of these teams tends to play out more true to form than it might for just 15 minutes of football. So, again, playing 1 singular round in a golf matchup has not been my forte, and that's the excuse I'm giving. It's just certainly more random and harder to predict. So I probably will not get involved again in the head-to-head matchup market. I've got my pre-tournament head-to-heads for the whole tournament, and I'll stick with those. So far, they look pretty good. But the outright market is something I may dabble in. If I do anything right now, it'll probably be on Oberg. But otherwise, I'll probably wait until they're finished with 2 rounds before I re-enter the outright market.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to watch how some of these things develop. And you can find Brady on Twitter at Las Vegas Golfer. I'm sure any information you need will be found there. I'll say as well, just to Brady's point, again, one of the fascinating things about those matchup bets, right? Lucas Glover is someone who I thought was interesting. And I wanted to find ways to bet on Lucas Glover. Now, he's 350 to 1 to win this tournament. That's not going to happen. So then I was looking at the match bets, and he was going against Ryan Fox. And I was like, Ryan Fox isn't all that great. But you know what? I just played a top 40, and I'm glad I did, because guess what? There was a point in the day where Ryan Fox was 5 under and the leader of this tournament. And that's not to say that Glover is going to not catch Fox or anything like that, but you don't get to dictate everything in these markets, so you have to be able to get a good feel for it all. And again, even sometimes if you want a guy, you have to play him in a different fashion there. But again, it's the Masters. It's exciting. We're going to watch it all play out, and Brady Cannon will be helping us throughout. Brady, appreciate it so much.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. And Ryan Fox is another example of, 1 round can be random. Ryan Fox had missed 5 cuts in his last 8 starts coming into the Masters. And then, like you say, goes out and is 5 under par before he dumps it in the water at 13 today. So you never know if maybe he'll blow up tomorrow. Maybe he'll go even lower. Like I say, I like to see 2 rounds before I get back involved in that outright market.
Saturday, if that's halftime, that's when we'll definitely be checking back in with Brady. Joe Madden on deck. We'll break down the NHL slate next.
Victor Hoffman right now can probably hit it right where he's looking on the range. But the problem is when you get out to a golf course, especially like Augusta National, it's a big, big picture. You can see every shot in the world, but the targets are really, really small.
I feel like whoever we pick is going to win. Like, I feel like we have the power to choose the winner of this tournament.
I know. I'm surprised more guys haven't reached out.
And they might, and they probably will.
Only on SportsGrid.
There's going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Jason Tatum has games where he has stinkers. He shoots a 4 for 16. Jaylen Brown in the playoffs gets exposed because he can't go left. Porzingis gets old. Sometimes Drew Holiday's not consistent. Al Horford father time to catch up. That being said, I still think they're going to the NBA Finals and winning it. And I'm a Knicks fan. I hate the Celtics with all of my might.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Memphis owns it. They beat them 5 straight times. And Memphis is awful. So what does that say about the Bucks? They're the most overrated team in the NBA, hands down.
Michigan and Boston College, there's going to be goals scored in this game. But, with that being stated, the total's up to 7.5 right now. I got to go under 7.5 here, Scott.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game Time Decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live to you right here. It's Game Time Decisions. We've got Joe Madden in the mix. She'll be with us here as well at the top of the hour to go through tonight's ice slate. A lot of great games at 7. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing great, Kevin. How are you doing on this beautiful Thursday?
Ready to go. As you said, it's a nice Thursday we've got going on here. Let's start hot in Toronto. The Maple Leafs and the New Jersey Devils. Again, one of these 7-10 puck drops. Toronto around nearly minus 200 on the money line. Total 6.5.
You got to look at Austin Matthews here. You got to circle him to get another goal. The books have juiced it at minus 110, but I do think you can look at him for his 2+ points as well. That's coming in at plus 142. Or you could look at him for the 2+ goals, Kevin. That's coming in at plus 430. You look at Austin Matthews, 66 goals on the season, and he has just been lighting that lamp game in and game out. He's looking to break records, make history here. He already passed Ovechkin for those 65 goals, getting that 66 in his last game out. And he's trying to get to the 69 to pass Mario Lemieux or tie him from back in 95-96. If he hits that 70, he will pass Mario Lemieux's record. And that record, 70 goals, hasn't been hit since the 1992. It's even weird to say 1992-93 season. So Austin Matthews for a big night tonight versus the New Jersey Devils.
All right, so we'll keep our eyes on Austin Matthews. That is just one NHL pick from Joe. She has 6 others, as well as some action in the game between the Baltimore Orioles and the Boston Red Sox. I'm going to be involved with that game as well. It is where you will find the MLB play of the day. Inside hour number 2, we will also talk to Zach Barnes and go through a little bit of the NBA slate, but as well get people ready for UFC 300. If you look at this weekend, that Saturday fight card is maybe the best in the history of that company. So we will get the breakdown from Zach Barnes, and then we'll put eyes out in Las Vegas with the help of Dave Sharapan. It's a quick break. We're back in less than a minute with Joe Madden breaking down tonight's NHL card. Next. Back with you right here. It's Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh with you live on a Thursday night, hanging out with Joe Madden, going through the NHL slate. Before we do that, though, let's talk quickly, Joe, baseball-wise, with Baltimore and Boston here. A little AL East action. What do you like in this game?
Orioles looking to get the sweep tonight, but this is going to be a battle, and it's going to be a battle right out of the gate. I look for both of these starting pitchers to be able to limit the bats on either side. Garrett Whitlock getting the start here for the Boston Red Sox. He's been phenomenal. He's been able to get these strikeouts, and especially in his career versus the Orioles. And then we look at the Orioles sending Grayson Rodriguez out. He's been so hot to start the season, and I do think he'll have every ability to get the strikeouts on the Boston Red Sox. Here, the Boston Red Sox have a really high K rate versus right-handed pitchers. They struck out over 25% of their strikeouts versus righties. So I'm looking for him to come out strong. He's strong versus lefties as well. You can take him over the 6.5 strikeouts at -111, but I do think this first 5 stays under that total coming in at 4.5 at -120 to the under, Kevin.
All right, so a few picks there from Joe in that game. I'm going to play Jackson Holiday over the 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs at +130. Thought about playing his 2+ bases initially at +135, but if Holiday goes deep, that's a win. If he triples, let's hope that they don't mess it up and they could bring around. And heck, if he doubles or again triples, again, we're talking 2+ bases here, then he would be able to get potentially driven in, or it could be an RBI base hit. And if he has 2+ hits, that would cash that wager. So give me Jackson Holiday, who I'm sure a lot of people lined up for the opening debut game. Only had the RBI, finished 0 for 4. I think this kid's too talented to start his career hitless. If I'm getting one hit, let's hope it comes with another run, RBI, or maybe even a second hit. Radio audiences live, Sirius XM, channel 159, right here at SportsGrid's Game Time Decisions on a Thursday night. We're going to quickly send it over to Davis Maddock for a same-game parlay.
All right, guys, huge game in the NBA tonight here on Thursday. The New Orleans Pelicans at Sacramento Kings, where we're going to take our FanDuel same-game parlay. We're going to begin by taking the Pelicans +1 and the over on 217. The Kings, they're just banged up. No Malik Monk, no Kevin Huerter. Now, Brandon Ingram is not in for the Pelicans. Luckily, they're able to replace him with Trey Murphy III, one of the best off-the-bench wings in the entire NBA. We are also going to tack on Zion Williamson to score 20 or more points in this game. Just a super difficult matchup for Keegan Murray and Domantas Sabonis. But we're also going to take Sabonis to record 10 or more assists in this game. On the other side, Sabonis is an impossible cover for Zion, and they really have not been playing a center in the second half of these games. This 4-leg same-game parlay is going to give us plus 989 odds. Pelicans +1. Over 217, Zion to record 20 or more points, and Sabonis to record 10 or more assists in this game. Good luck, everybody.
All right, appreciate the breakdown there from Davis Maddock. We'll talk more NBA in just a couple of minutes here on SportsGrid. But, Joe, let's get back to the ice tonight. And Pittsburgh and Detroit will go head-to-head. The Penguins, a home favorite. This total right now checks in at 6.5.
This is going to be the best game of the night. So much on the line for both of these teams in this game, Kevin. They're both sitting here with 84 points on the season. The Red Wings 5th in the Atlantic and the Pittsburgh Penguins 5th in the Metro. Whoever comes out of this game, I do think it's a race between them and the Washington Capitals for that last wild card spot. Neither team wants to take the loss. And while I look to take this game under the total, I just can't get there because I do think in the desperate third period, if one of these teams opens up on one of these goaltenders, we could see this one going into overtime. And because it has that possibility of going to overtime, I can't touch a total here, even at 6.5, because I can see a story where this is 2-2 going to overtime, or this is 3-3 going to overtime, which will push us over that 6.5. So I'm just going to take this one straight to go to overtime. That coming in at plus 360. Like I said, so much on the line for both of these teams. Their playoff hopes really are on the line with this game. And I do believe that whoever wins this will battle it out with Washington for that last wild card spot. So give me overtime, Kevin.
Joe, what do you think about this game tonight between Florida and Columbus? The Panthers are the biggest favorites on tonight's board at minus 400.
You got to look at the Florida Panthers here. They're sitting second in the Atlantic with 104 points. They're 3 points behind Boston. But my biggest concern for the Florida Panthers is the Toronto Maple Leafs, not the Boston Bruins. The Toronto Maple Leafs are sitting 3 points behind the Florida Panthers with a game in hand. So they have every opportunity of taking that second spot in the Atlantic and pushing the Florida Panthers down to third. Florida doesn't want to see that. And I do think we see in this one, them come strong straight out of the gate. I'm going to look at the Florida Panthers on the puck line in the first period, laying that half a goal. That's coming in at minus 110. And then I do think there's some players you can circle. I wouldn't be playing their team total or anything like that. We saw them versus the Ottawa Senators. They got up quick, 2 goals, and then locked down on the defensive side. And I expect them to play a similar game here versus the Columbus Blue Jackets, even though Jet Greaves is in goal and we should see a lot of goals out of them. I just worry they are playing smart hockey right now. They're playing to get the win. They're not playing to rack up a lot of goals. But if you are looking at a couple of players, Barkov's been incredible on that power play, and that's where I would look. His power play point coming in at plus 135, Kevin.
Joe, how do we find some value tonight on the New York Rangers? About minus 200 I see on their money line against the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah, I think this is another one. You look at that first period. You look for the New York Rangers to come out strong to start this game. Laying the half a goal on the puck line in the first period is coming in at plus 126. I have full faith in Jonathan Quick to come out nice and strong. And I do think this team gets a win. So that regulation bet is actually probably the safer, better bet to go with the New York Rangers. The regulation coming in at minus 145, but that plus money on that first period. The Flyers are beat up. 6 in the Metro, 83 points. This team has absolutely struggled, losing their last 8. I can't see them pulling off an upset in the first period or the full game over the New York Rangers, Kevin.
And then, Joe, potentially lastly here, the Capitals tonight, some juice in this game?
Yeah, I've got to look at the Washington Capitals. Way too much to play for. I know the Buffalo Sabres are playing their last home game of the season. Officially eliminated last game versus the Dallas Stars in that loss. It was a heartbreaking loss for the Buffalo Sabres. They had all the hopes in the world to make it to the playoffs, but the Dallas Stars ended that. They're a dangerous team at home. The Washington Capitals are going to absolutely have their hands full in this one, but this is a team with something to play for. I've got to count on them to find a way with Ovechkin to be able to get the win with a chance of making the playoffs. Give me the plus money on the Washington Capitals and Ovi for the anytime goal. That's coming in at plus 140. His 2+ points worth a look as well at plus 235. He has 852 goals in his career, 42 behind Wayne Gretzky there, Kevin.
There you go. A lot of interesting spots on the ice tonight. I think Joe also said the Flames Kings over in the first period and the Jets and the Stars under in that first period. Joe, thank you as always.
Thanks, Kevin. Best of luck, everyone out there on the ice tonight.
Great stuff from Joe. Up next, the NBA and the Milwaukee Bucks. Is there finally some value? We'll discuss that next.
Victor Hovland right now can probably hit it right where he's looking on the range. But the problem is when you get out to a golf course, especially like Augusta National, it's a big, big picture. You can see every shot in the world, but the targets are really, really small.
I feel like whoever we pick is going to win. Like, I feel like we have the power to choose the winner of this tournament.
I know. I'm surprised more guys haven't reached out.
And they might, and they probably will.
Only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Jason Tatum has games where he has stinkers. He shoots a 4 for 16. Jaylen Brown in the playoffs gets exposed because he can't go left. Porzingis gets old. Sometimes Drew Holiday's not consistent. Al Horford father time to catch up. That being said, I still think they're going to the NBA Finals and winning it. And I'm a Knicks fan. I hate the Celtics with all of my might.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Memphis owns it. They beat them 5 straight times. And Memphis is awful. So what does that say about the Bucks? They're the most overrated team in the NBA, hands down.
Michigan and Boston College, there's going to be goals scored in this game. But, with that being stated, the total's up to 7.5 right now. I got to go under 7.5 here, Scott.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game Time Decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back with you here on a Thursday night. Kevin Walsh, Game Time Decisions. And I want to take a look at the NBA and some of the updates in the market because we had a really big move in the NBA's finals odds and impact, of course, then in the Eastern Conference market as well due to the injury sustained by Giannis Antetokounmpo in the Milwaukee Bucks game the other night against the Boston Celtics. Now, the Bucks, of course, somehow still won this basketball game, pushing them up to 49-31. They followed up with another win against the Orlando Magic. They've won 2 in a row after a really nasty 4-game losing streak here, and they are in the driver's seat, at least control their own destiny for the 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference. The incredible thing for Milwaukee is how much of a punishment that could ultimately end up. The calf strain that which Giannis suffered in that game has left some question marks on his availability for the opening round of the playoffs. Now, we are still a ways away from that. A week from today, we will still be playing some play-in games. The playoffs will not begin until Saturday, which would be the 20th of April. So that would still give Giannis off a bit of time. And if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, and let's just say you don't get Giannis back for game 1, you would hope you could still get him at some point in that series. The difficult thing for Milwaukee, though, is if the playoffs started today, they'd be playing the Philadelphia 76ers. And the way this is going to potentially break out for Milwaukee is there may be no escaping opening if they are the 2 seed with Philly or Miami. Because if that's the 7-8 game, and the winner of that game would play the 2-seeded Bucks. And that was always going to be a spot that people were going to look to fade Milwaukee. Either the Miami Heat, who eliminated Giannis and the Bucks last year, would draw Milwaukee in the opening round, and everybody knows the pedigree that Miami brings to the postseason, or the Philadelphia 76ers, who are the second best team in this Eastern Conference by a mile when Joel Embiid is healthy. And that's just what they are. So now, if Giannis isn't available, the Bucks would be dogs in the series. That's the type of swing we are talking about. So in the NBA Finals odds, Milwaukee is now 17-1. They're still the second choice, but look at the move. Plus 480 to 17-1. Milwaukee was still being given a lot of respect in the market due to Giannis, really more than anything. That and the most dangerous teams, again, if you look at the odds in Philly and Miami, we're all the way back there at 7 and 8. But while those teams are dangerous, the Bucks would have home court, and you would expect Milwaukee to handle their business to a degree. At least that's what the odds were expecting. This move is seeing the Clippers and the Thunder jump in front of them. They're sat right now in between OKC and Minnesota. That 17-1 number on Milwaukee is the type of number people would need to actually finally bet them if they were fully healthy. Because what's happened for the Bucks is Doc Rivers confirming he is completely unbettable. At every turn, there's no rallying cry. It's just more and more excuses. And Doc has now been given the ultimate excuse, potentially. If Giannis doesn't play in that series, I'm not telling you Doc's going to be happy about it. What do you think that press conference will sound like when they get eliminated in the opening round? Well, I didn't have Giannis. You know, we went out there, we competed. Well, what were we really supposed to do without 34? There's not going to be a rallying cry. There's not going to be a, come on, let's go out here and get the job done. No. It'll be the same pile of excuses that we expect from a Doc Rivers-led team. Heck, Giannis misses one game, and Doc will already have the excuse he needs. Is Damian Lillard set to rally the troops here? Doubt it. I think more than anything, Dame probably looks around and goes, I didn't want to be here. I wanted to be in Miami. What is going on? This is unbelievable. I might go into this playoffs with less support than I had when I was going to the playoffs with Portland if Giannis isn't around. The Bucks are about as unbettable of a team with top 10 odds to win a title as you will ever see in the history of the playoffs. Nobody's touching this team. Not anymore. I mean, yeah, there were people who bet them in the offseason when they brought Dame in, and it was understandable. But now, who wants to bet this team? Nobody. And sometimes we have conversations on this show. That's when you jump in. Not for me. No way. I have no interest in this Milwaukee team. And if we find out that legitimately Giannis could miss opening round action, they become the target. I know the Knicks are shorthanded. I know the Cavs have fallen off a bit down the back stretch. Orlando and Indiana are unproven. But the Bucks are the target if you are a Philly or Miami ticket holder. Because, well, I mean, obviously, you don't want to have to play Boston. It is incredible, though, within this Eastern Conference race, how important this seeding is going to be. If somehow Philly could catch the Pacers, or Miami could, or maybe catch Orlando, if one of those teams grabs the 6, and then the other could win the play-in game and get up to the 7, that is a huge win for Philly. It is a huge win for Miami, and it's a monstrous win for Boston. Because Boston is now minus 185 to win the Eastern Conference. Their title odds are down to plus 165. Part of that is Boston being better than everybody else in this conference. But again, it's and being the best team in basketball. But look at this. Milwaukee is the second choice. Nobody will want to touch them. Philly's in the 7th seed. Miami's in the 8th seed. That's how the list goes. The Knicks' second best player's out for the year. My goodness. Look at this conference. Where are you supposed to put money? So, again, the bracket's going to be important, but this Milwaukee news, it changes the odds a lot, but I don't think it's going to bring in a lot of Milwaukee wagers. I really do not. I want to quickly bring up, we have a playoff series set. It is the LA Clippers and the Dallas Mavericks. This will be the 4-5. It is possible that the Mavericks jump the Clippers for the 4th seed. You might say, why then even post this? It's what sportsbooks do. They want to give you a glimpse at the line. Also, it would be very, very stunning if the Clippers ultimately did not end up the 4, so they're confident enough at that minus 136. The Clippers cannot lose out. Home against the Jazz, home against the Rockets. They're not losing out. I mean, if they did, it would be hilarious, and it would be great for a preseason Dallas Mavericks Western Conference future ticket holder, but Dallas is going to play LA. And then we will start to try and figure out the health of the Clippers and if Luka Doncic can continue to own this team. Luka Doncic, by the way, and the Dallas Mavericks are now a 50-win basketball team, and I believe 15-2 in their last 17. They are fantastic. And if this bracket can break correctly for them, they have a great chance to win the West. The thing that did not break great for Dallas was Denver's win against Minnesota last night, possibly clinching the top seed and, of course, their division. Because if the Nuggets are the number 1 seed, it would give Dallas a matchup, or the Clippers, with the Nuggets in round 2, which is earlier than you want to play them. And, of course, it gives Denver home court advantage throughout the postseason. It's why the Nuggets number in the West has continued to grow shorter and sits right now all the way down to plus 130. Next closest option is the Clippers at plus 500. If you are looking for some NBA action tonight, I did play the Celtics money line at minus 122, and my favorite bet is the Utah Jazz catching 11 points from the Houston Rockets. We can expand on the NBA board in a bit with Zach Parnes, but we will also start to talk about UFC 300, arguably the greatest card in the history of this company. That's next, right here on SportsGrid.
Victor Hoffman right now.
When it comes to betting on sports, injuries matter, and Sports Injury Central has you covered all year long with expert injury analysis and injury-based picks for the NFL, NBA, and MLB. Our former pro sports doctors have unmatched experience to analyze every injury so you know the impact of the player, team, and their upcoming matchup. Whether it's articles, podcasts, player insights, or our patented injury scores, Sports Injury Central will help you keep up with your fantasy team and make more informed wagers. So make sure you follow Sports Injury Central and gain an edge at sixscore.com.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Memphis owns it. They beat them 5 straight times. And Memphis is awful. So what does that say about the Bucks? They're the most overrated team in the NBA, hands down.
Michigan and Boston College, there's going to be goals scored in this game. But, with that being stated, the total's up to 7.5 right now. I got to go under 7.5 here, Scott.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We're always looking for these states that are, looking to legalize sports betting.
Cost about $5 million to $7 million to get this off the ground, and I wasn't very familiar with the laws that Nebraska has around its referendum, Craig, but they only need a simple majority, but they need certain percentages.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.
Back right here, it's Game Time Decisions. We are live with you on a Thursday night, talking to Zach Parnes because we're pretty close to UFC 300. Arguably, Zach, the best card in the company's history.
Oh, my goodness, Kevin. I would absolutely say so. This is just stacked top to bottom. Unbelievable fights. I mean, the fact that we get prelim bouts that are going to feature guys like Hiri Prohaska and Alexander Rakic. I mean, we are just in for an absolute treat. The Vegas fight fans, I kind of want to be able to get in on whatever they're going to have out there just because I know the atmosphere will be infectious.
Yeah, it certainly will. Although I got to say, now, Zach and I have only talked a little bit here, but right before we got going, he mentioned McGregor was not going to fight. And what Zach did was give me an opening because by far and away, Conor McGregor is my favorite fighter, which is probably not a rare thing. But I will ask you quickly, Zach, do you actually think we are ever going to see Conor back in an octagon here? Because, man, they love doing teases, and Conor loves to tweet. But listen, just because he's my favorite doesn't mean there's plenty of criticism that's very valid that can be passed his way. Do you actually think we're going to see him back in an octagon?
I think from a business perspective, yes. Personally, I think no. I don't think McGregor is ready to fight. I don't think that he's ready to cut the weight. I think that his focus has been on the acting career, the partying, etc. I mean, we have seen that from the Notorious quite a bit recently. There's been all these interviews that have come out recently where Conor looks like that he might be on a couple illicit substances. That, of course, is just speculation only, not journalistic integrity here. But by this, it definitely has not looked good from a public perspective about seeing Conor McGregor back inside the octagon. Now, then again, man loves money, did have the chance to sell proper 12, but could always take another payday, and there will be no payday probably greater than pay-per-view numbers that will come in from a fight with Michael Chandler. But I'm of the opinion that Chandler should take a different fight because as of right now, he may be losing pivotal years of his career that he ultimately is not going to get back as he starts pushing above 30 right now.
The funny thing for Chandler is, and I promise this will then be the end of the McGregor stuff since he's not fighting, how many fights does he need to take that would amount to the money he could make fighting with Conor? And I'm sure he's well aware of it, and it's why he's waiting around. The issue is running the risk that he's currently on of Conor never actually goes back in, or Conor pivots because, with respect to Michael Chandler, Conor does not need Michael Chandler whatsoever. He can fight literally anyone, and it would automatically become the biggest fight within that company. Let's talk about the big fights, though, on UFC 300, including a women's title bout, Zach, with Zhang Wei Li, who is a minus 500 favorite. Look, we know sometimes the dominant fighters have big prices, and it forces creativity on the bettor to find a way to make these options a little bit more palatable. What do you make of this fight?
Oh, man, this fight is actually going to be pretty entertaining, in my opinion. I know that sometimes the women's fights can tend to be a snooze fest for the casual fans because they tend to go the distance, not a lot of finishes. But I really like Zhang Weili to actually get the finish inside the distance here. But let's not get it twisted. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between these two women, right? Both with 63-inch reach. They're both 34 years old. Both have 3 losses. Both also averaging the same number of significant strikes landed per minute. But that's where the similarities stop, Kevin. Let's be honest. Zhang Weili is the greatest Chinese athlete on the planet. She's been able to do it time and time again and just prove her value. Destroyed Amanda Lemos last time out in what was, in my opinion, the most lopsided title fight in the history of the UFC. She outstruck her 163-24 with 6 takedowns, was not able to actually get the win via TKO, KO, or a submission, but there were attempts aplenty in there. I think that is going to change this time around against Zheng Zhaoyan, who personally I don't think has had a test quite like Weili yet, and ultimately I think is going to cost her early on in this fight. I think Weili gets the win by knockout, and it comes in the first or second round to the delight of the crowd. That being said, if you have the opportunity to lay on that minus 550 favorite that is Zhang Weili, definitely put your money there because I have a feeling that we will hear and still in that co-main event.
All right, so it gives people an idea of that dominance. You know, the incredible thing about this card is I think where people will realize, oh, this is the best card they've ever put on, it's not necessarily the top, it's the depth. And to me, the fight that I went, wait, what? Was when I saw Aljo was fighting in the prelims. That was the one for me where I was like, hold on a minute here. Something's not lining up. He's going up against Calvin Kattar. What do you see in that fight with Aljo here on the prelims?
Yeah, a super awesome matchup between, honestly, two titans of their respective kind of strengths, so to speak, right? Aljo, the minus 175 favorite, arguably one of the best wrestlers in the entire sport of mixed martial arts, but who's one of the best takedown defense artists in all of MMA? That's Calvin Kattar. I mean, when you take a look at just what this guy has been able to do in stopping some of the best and taking him down, 92% on a takedown defense rate. And how about this also, Kevin? Kattar owning the least amount of time spent in the bottom position among all UFC featherweights right now, inside of a minute for his entire career. I do think that Aljo, though, is going to switch that up and just change things here and ultimately affect the future for Calvin, maybe hand him his 3rd straight loss as well. But I think if Sterling is able to get this fight down to the ground early, we're going to see that wrestling expertise come on out, and it's going to be damn difficult for Calvin to rise back up to his feet and start striking again, because that is his bread and butter. And if he can't have the opportunity to do so because he's down on the canvas, this is going to be a Sterling win, 30-27.
Tell me, Zach, what do you make of the main event on the prelims with Yuri and Rakic there? Do you see some value?
Yeah, definitely some value, I think, in Prohaska, personally, just because of the quality of opponents. That is what I see. Here he is a little bit fresher in this. You know, fighting's a young man's game, and even though these two are just only kind of a year apart, the 2 injuries that they've sustained are both brutal and kept them out for a long time, but Rakic, his is the only one that's lower body here, and I think that that's going to cost him dearly. He hasn't fought since 2020. Meanwhile, since then, here he's fought twice for the belt against Glover Teixeira, and then when he lost it against Alex Pereira. But I think that Prohaska presents as just one of the most versatile fighters on his feet in general, has those unbelievable quick flying elbows that he'll catch you with out of absolutely nowhere. He sticks to that Bushido, the samurai code, and I think it's going to come out and prove that he will be the more disciplined fighter in this 3-round event that ultimately could be a 5-round bout in any other card that the UFC is putting on. But for me, it's Prohaska. I'm repping the Czech Republic in this one. I like him to maybe even be able to do it inside the distance right now. I was kind of surprised with a few of those numbers, Kevin, personally. The fight to go to a decision, plus 165 to not go to that decision, minus 225. I figured after we had seen these last two out there might have been some talk about this going the full 15 minutes, but personally, I think it will be Hirdi who gets his hand raised at the end of it.
Now, we maybe can have some time to sneak in some NBA, but if not, it's all good because, again, this card demands this attention. And one thing that, you know, you kind of reminded what UFC and the similarity it has to pro wrestling is you have to book and you have to advertise and you have to showcase occasionally what you hope are your future stars. And there was a fight
it's one of these things is not like the other. And you look at that main card, and there's Bo Nickel at minus 3,500. Is this a situation where Dana gave him Brundage because he's like, okay, Nickel will crush him and everybody will have their most eyes on Bo? Or is this just the gap right now between Bo Nickel and anybody that he steps into the octagon with?
Yeah, I think there is a significant gap. You're talking about one of the most talented Division I wrestlers of all time in Bo Nickel, and the way that he's been able to sort of translate both that toughness and resolve into a totally different sport. He's been in there not a lot of time in his octagon career, and for very good reason. He is highly skilled. I think Cody Brundage is absolutely the best opponent that he will ever face inside the octagon. So if anything, I maybe go for that little sprinkle, Salt Bay-esque over on Brundage, which right now is somewhere between plus 1,000 and plus 1,250, depending on where you're looking for your juice. But I think that Nickel presents just an unbelievable skill set that often rewards mixed martial artists who are just absolute kind of titans when it comes to wrestling. It's why I like Sterling in his fight against Cater, and it's especially why I think fight fans can like Bo Nickel in this one. That being said, the odds are pretty overpowering. I think that maybe you go for the Brundage flash KO to just stun the entire populace of fight fans. But by the same token, Nickel is certainly rising up through the ranks, and I don't think it's going to be very long until we see him get his opportunity for a title fight.
Yeah, again, it is remarkable how strong of a favorite you have here for Bo. I mean, and the under is 1.5 at minus 300. It's as low as it gets. It's about as low as it gets. Quickly, Zach, NBA-wise, anything catching your eye tonight?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I think it's a matchup between two teams that are absolutely battling for playoff seeding right now. The New Orleans Pelicans, of course, and then the Sacramento Kings. I mean, this should prove to be a total battle down low and one that I'm extremely looking forward to between Domantas Sabonis and Zion Williamson and, of course, Jonas Valanciunas. I think the Pelicans have the advantage here right now. They're plus money in terms of the money line themselves. And if you look, I would be kind of concerned about that if I'm anyone taking the Kings right now, because the Pels have won the last 4 matchups. We've seen Trey Murphy step into his own. He's becoming a really integral part of this offense. Also loves to shoot the 3 ball, so I'm all in on his over tonight at 16.5. I mean, he's averaging almost 9 threes a game. 9 3-pointers a game for a guy who is deep in the bench earlier this year for the New Orleans Pelicans. He's now become just a token part of the offense and someone that I look forward to seeing tonight. And I think that he's going to help give his team the edge over a Sacramento team that's right there at that 8 spot right now in the play-in radius. They're nervous about where they're sitting. Pelicans got to protect that 6, though, Kevin.
There you go, Zach. Appreciate it as always. We'll talk to the consig next.
Victor Hoffman right now can probably hit it right where he's looking on the range. But the problem is when you get out to a golf course, especially like Augusta National, it's a big, big picture. You can see every shot in the world, but the targets are really, really small.
I feel like whoever we pick is going to win. Like, I feel like we have the power to choose the winner of this tournament.
I know. I'm surprised more guys haven't reached out.
And they might, and they probably will.
Only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Jason Tatum has games where he has stinkers. He shoots a 4 for 16. Jaylen Brown in the playoffs gets exposed because he can't go left. Porzingis gets old. Sometimes Drew Holiday's not consistent. Al Horford father time to catch up. That being said, I still think they're going to the NBA Finals and winning it. And I'm a Knicks fan. I hate the Celtics with all of my might.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Memphis owns it. They beat them 5 straight times. And Memphis is awful. So what does that say about the Bucks? They're the most overrated team in the NBA, hands down.
Michigan and Boston College, there's going to be goals scored in this game. But, with that being stated, the total's up to 7.5 right now. I got to go under 7.5 here, Scott.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort
Night.
of has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, making it happen with you right here on Thursday night. I'm Kevin Walsh. We will, of course, be live with weekend game time decisions on Saturday. And Saturday, we just talked to Zach Barnes about UFC 300. And I'm sure this is not a coincidence. A great piece of booking by the UFC. Saturday night, the NBA's off because they had to make sure that nobody was playing on a back-to-back with the regular season finale on Sunday. And if everybody's watching, sometimes that means everybody's betting. Dave Sharapan joins the show. And out there in Las Vegas, Dave, you usually have the pulse of the people. Is there a lot of buzz around this fight card on Saturday?
Huge. It's huge. This is one of the best cards in years, and it's here, and it's a good weekend to be here. So Masters weekend, golf during the day, fights at night. First fight's at 3:00. There's a buzz. It's going to be fun. And booking these things for years. This one, I heard you say it before, the depth of this card is what is going to make this card so good.
Mm-hmm.
The competitiveness of the lines is going to keep people involved. There's only a couple bunnies, layups, nickel, and the co-main. But the guy we had on today, Brandon Fitzgerald, said the dog's live in the co-main. So that's a minus 500 favorite. So it's going to be fun. Those events are fun. I've been to a couple in person now. I used to sit in the risk room and book the bets and watch the people. When you don't have the event in your book, it kind of stinks. And if I don't go, I'll probably be watching it at a book with some guys. But yeah, it's a big night, Kev.
Now, speaking of big events, no bigger golf event than the Masters. We got that going right now. And what have you heard about what they need relative to Scottie Scheffler? Scottie, it's so interesting, right? Because it's a field of, let's just call it 90 guys roughly. Right. In an outright market, only one guy can win. So you would grade one winner and 89 losers. But But Scottie is so much the talk, right? And he's currently now the favorite because he's just one shot back of Bryson. Mm-hmm. Do they need anyone but Scottie and Tiger usually? What are you hearing around that?
Forever, if you didn't have enough volume, you needed against the favorite. If you have enough volume, the favorite winning is great. The Scheffler price is like a Tiger price from years ago. It's that much of a dominant price. And it hasn't happened since then. So if the Scheffler wins, the books will be fine. Anytime you can pay the plus 450s, that's it. 4.5 to 1 was as high as that was. What is the updated price? I haven't looked yet.
Plus 140.
That's a dream. If you're in a book, if the plus 140 guy wins, perfect. Keep him coming. It's those long shots at 400 to 1 that sting a little bit and leave you something to be desired to get back. So is he going to run away with this thing, though? I saw your tweet earlier, #golf guy. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I like it.
This is this time of year. I gotta get into the ring with the with the golf guys, and we mix it up a little bit. So, we'll see what we can do here for the people. Yes. It's just interesting to me, right? Because look, especially in an outright market, I don't know. Do they hang nose? How many people bet minus 600 Scotty won't win this week?
They're few and far between. They'll come in. If you give them to win 5 dimes, they'll bet 30 to win 5 against them. That's if they don't think he's going to win, that's
they keep those posted though. So are they now hanging minus 200 field?
Yeah, for the majors, a couple places in town that do the nose will put them back up if they haven't already. I haven't looked, but that the no is where you get the money. It's you get the guy that really believes it and is willing to back it. And you take those bets. I mean, I take a bet that for 30,000 to win 5 that the sun will come up tomorrow. And guys laying 6 to 1. That's there's not too many people that actually did the job that wouldn't go, okay, that's not a bad deal, because if it doesn't happen, if it's cloudy, we're good.
So you just kind of naturally got me to the NFL draft, which is about 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes draft stuff isn't your favorite, but you mentioned someone being willing to lay 600. And I think what's so interesting with the draft, right? They're going to post a market on Caleb because they're not going to not post a market for the first overall pick. Right. But we all know he's going to the Bears. But I don't know how that works. I have no idea how that works in the room. Let me pull it up quickly, Dave, to give you an accurate number on what this guy is listed to go first overall. He's 10,000 to 1. So you have to bet $100. You have to bet $100 to win $1. So you want to win $100, you got to bet 10 grand. I guess. Well, let's see. What's that maxed out at here? 50,000 is the max wager.
Okay.
So I guess it's weird though, Dave, because it is going to get paid out, isn't it?
Yeah. If the books want to put that up, you just know you're giving them, a little bit of a head start on whether it's basketball or whatever else you hope they bet on. I mean, you hope it's a customer that you already have. When it's a new guy coming in just to earn some interest on the draft day, you're like, man, buddy, really? You want to do this right now? Okay. Give me a shot to win the nickel back. If you're going to come up and bet 50,000 to make 500, okay, come on in, take a shot. I'll be sitting in the room going, are they trading him? Are they trading the pick? That would be an unbelievable thing that he doesn't get drafted first, but he's going to get drafted first. They're not trading the pick. He's going to Chicago. The hard part is, K-Dub, you can't not, if you're going to put up draft props and take bets on it, this is one you can't leave off. You just know you're going to lose this. This is the loss leader. And hope there's a trade in the 2 or 3 spot and something happens there and you net break even. This is a net break even proposition, the draft. If we can break even, we're doing good.
Because ultimately it's not a game, right? So if everyone's betting on information, you're not in the room calling a guy. You're reacting. So it leaves you. That's what you've kind of told me, right? Is you guys are sitting there waiting for something to happen. And then you go, all right, we got to move, kind of thing.
There's no volume on that. Someone randomly will come in today and bet the Penguins against the Red Wings because it is a meaningful game to somebody. Nobody's betting the NFL draft unless they really know. It's one of the sharpest markets, information-based. So you have one guy assigned in the room. I would volunteer you because you like to read this stuff. I could even put Sam in there as your assistant and say, go read all the draft stories. come up with some numbers, and start moving them around without taking bets. Because I don't even want to wait and get buried on something. If you can read something and get ahead of it, you can. Nobody does that. We're too busy watching the last week of the NBA, the playoffs, the NHL playoffs, Major League Baseball, looking at the horses, getting ready for the Kentucky Derby, the next major in golf, things that are happening that people actually bet. So the draft prop, you can make a little scratch for a summer vacation if you do well with the draft.
I would imagine. See, I don't know how different this is, Dave, from kind of when you were in the room versus, we're using the sport apps here, right? But basically, on just using FanDuel, of let's call it 40, that might be strong, 35 markets, 5 of them have, call it the no, right? The positional over-unders have an over and an under.
Right.
Everything else, you're just really betting a yes, right? Got to go top 10, got to go 7. Bills draft quarterback, wide receiver, you know what I mean? And I'm guessing that allows as much protection as possible, right?
Correct.
Because it can't all be one-way action, if you will.
Correct. That's why the books that offer the props do it that way. They're just putting it up because they have to, not really because they want to. I think if you went around and said to the books, would you rather ban college sports props or would you rather ban NFL draft betting? It would be almost unanimous that it would be NFL draft betting. Let us book the props. We'll be fair. I don't want to book the draft.
Do you think, so Monday is the WNBA draft?
Yes.
There is going to be conversation because of Caitlin.
Yes.
The interesting thing is there's nothing really to do with Caitlin specifically on draft night because she's going first.
Yes.
So much so that Dawn Staley, in that really nice, I want to give Caitlin Clark a lot of credit for what she's accomplished, and she'll continue to accomplish when she goes first overall. You don't hear that from an opposing coach, but we all know Caitlin's going first.
Correct.
But I imagine they're going to post the most WNBA draft night bets they've ever posted, even if that's only 7.
It's time to get to work. I mean, if this whole thing with at the grid if this doesn't work out, you're on the list. I'm putting you on the consulting board. That's the way you're supposed to think in the book. We got the most eyeballs on this right now. Let's create a couple markets. Who's going to be the second pick? Who's going to be the third pick? How many LSU players are going to get drafted? Give me an assignment. Come up with a couple things that we could, put together. How many South Carolina players are getting drafted? Let's have fun with it. You can't get hurt. This is one of those things that it will be talked about in the media, but there's no one going to the window unless you create the buzz and create the markets.
Yeah.
They're doing the work. Caitlin Clark is a generational talent. Let's put up some markets. Let's get to work. You got something to do this weekend.
Well, I'll tell you this, though. They, at minimum, they have all these Caitlin Clark WNBA specials up. Lead her team in scoring, minus 280. Her first basket to be a 3, which is minus 150, which I think is wild.
Put that up already?
Yeah. Those have actually been up for a while.
Shame. Wow, there's no
But I'll
shame.
tell you this. They already have the MVP odds out. You want to guess where she is?
Second or third?
4th.
Okay.
It's last year's top 3 and then her.
Okay. I was going to say you jump to third and put her third or, even second if you know you're going to take bets. Makes sense.
They have up, and look, I think they have their win total up. 21.5 for the Fever. See, I'll tell you this, and Dave, you could probably, you have more time frame to go back from. I don't remember anyone being such a favorite to go first overall. That's not true. I guess Wemby. Never mind. Never mind. Wemby was that much of a favorite. But we have the Fever's win total up because she's already on the Fever. It's pretty remarkable, Dave.
Right. Yeah, that's good stuff. Listen, you can do it If you want to do it, you're hired.
All right, I got another job. Great. Best bet next.
Victor Hovland right now can probably hit it right where he's looking on the range. But the problem is when you get out to a golf course, especially like Augusta National, it's a big, big picture. You can see every shot in the world, but the targets are really, really small.
I feel like whoever we pick is going to win. Like, I feel like we have the power to choose the winner of this tournament.
I know. I'm surprised more guys haven't reached out.
And they might, and they probably will.
Only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than game time decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Jason Tatum has games where he has stinkers. He shoots a 4 for 16. Jaylen Brown in the playoffs gets exposed because he can't go left. Porzingis gets old. Sometimes Drew Holiday's not consistent. Al Horford father time to catch up. That being said, I still think they're going to the NBA Finals and winning it. And I'm a Knicks fan. I hate the Celtics with all of my might.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Memphis owns it. They beat them 5 straight times. And Memphis is awful. So what does that say about the Bucks? They are the most overrated team in the NBA, hands down.
Michigan and Boston College, there's going to be goals scored in this game. But, with that being stated, the total's up to 7.5 right now. I got to go under 7.5 here, Scott.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, we'll close it out. Game time decisions. Up next, of course, we'll be in-game live, so make sure you stay dialed right here on SportsGrid. I will see you Saturday as well as Sunday, of course, for the weekend game time decisions. We'll have plenty of focus for you on the Masters. We end out the opening round. It does not matter what happens, I promise you. I know some guys might still be out there. Scottie Scheffler remains the favorite. Underneath plus 150, I imagine, anywhere you look. What does that look like Friday? We will see. If you go over to @TheKevinWalsh, any golf bets, because of course I won't be here, that I make before they tee off, you can find right there if you want to be in the mix. Just right now, eyes are on Jon Rahm. Got to get him inside that top 20. We're talking a lot about these minus 1,000s. Like, what is Scotty going to be to finish inside the top 10 after that round? I'd imagine it's about probably more, maybe minus 2,000. Probably about minus 600 to finish top 5. That's just Scotty Scheffler odds. You know what should be minus 600? Jazz to cover the 11. Come on now. What are we doing here? Give me the Jazz as the best bet. Look at Dave loves it. Jazz best bet plus 11. This for me is a perfect spot. The Rockets thought they could make the play-in. Great winning streak. Humbled. Lose. At home, catching 3 from the Magic. They've been great all year at home. They finally step up one last time. And what do they do now that they're back on the road in Utah? Coach, we gave it our best. We'll get after it next year. I like the Jazz to cover the 11. We're live right now with the Celtics in their money line against the Knicks, as well as Jackson Holiday, see if he can get involved. Opening at bat for him on day number 2 as a big leaguer was a ground out. I still think his hit will come tonight against the Boston Red Sox. We'll continue, of course, to follow all of the action, so make sure that you keep it right here on SportsGrid with In-Game Live next. And since we did discuss it a bit, but we will have your WNBA draft coverage on Monday night. Any markets they pop off, we will be ready to attack. I'm Kevin Walsh. It's Game Time Decisions. Best of luck.